Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with jazz pianist, composer, and educator Cyrus Chestnut. His musical roots began with piano playing at the Mount Calvary Star Baptist Church at the age of 5 in his hometown of Baltimore, Maryland. From there, he would move on to Boston, to the Berklee College of Music, and would go on to dedicate his life to jazz, honing his craft as a sideman with some of the legendary and leading musicians in the craft like Michael Carvin, Donald Harrison, Terence Blanchard, Wynton Marsalis, Freddie Hubbard, Benny Golson, Betty Carter, and the great Dizzy Gillespie. He just released his newest 2018 CD called Kaleidoscope. He's full of wisdom, so get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Cyrus, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and hop into your latest album, Kaleidoscope. I've really had a great time listening to this album, and I want to know from you, how do you feel about this project and what went into it for you?
Kaleidoscope is a very significant record in my journey. It really encompasses everything that I've experienced to this day. I teach at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and in addition to teaching and sharing information, I'm able to do research. So I remember from being very young, I always liked the Impressionist composers, Debussy, Poulenc, Ravel. You know, I understand now why I like them, because there's some common ground in the way how they write harmonically. And also, for me, the way how they write is very organic to me. Sometimes the phrases are even and sometimes the phrases are uneven, are very much like the way how we communicate. I also like the fact of how the composers, specifically Satie, writes a phrase and allows you the time to really hear and process the phrase before introducing the next phrase. All that being said, I wanted to do interpretations of some of this great music. I know that there have been, I've done a record of interpretations of classical pieces, but they were more like just taking some of the music that went into the mainstream. And I didn't really want to do another album like that. Really dug in very hard. Did everything I could to learn everything about not only the composer, but really research the music and connect to it. And once that happened, then the intent was just to offer an interpretation, not fixing the original. Not fixing the original. The original does not need to be fixed at all. But once again, given the jazz idiom and I believe the freedom, I believe it allows one to be able to express oneself. I chose the pieces that I did. Some I found out were somewhat popular, and then some not so popular. And then going on, people will always ask, they always get this look or this reaction when I talk about the group Deep Purple. And one might wonder, why in the world would I do an interpretation of Smoke on the Water? Well, it goes back to high school when I took a guitar class, and around all the guitars, they were playing power chords, and they were playing like Smoke on the Water and all. The very first gig I ever played was playing Smoke on the Water. So if I'm going to play, if what I'm going to express comes out of what I've been exposed to, then why not? Why not take a stab at Deep Purple? I think I don't care to be typecast as just a jazz trio pianist playing specific repertoire in the trio way. I always like attempting to go outside of the box and just figure out what else I can do. Because I don't necessarily care about sounding just like everyone else.
Right on. Well, and speaking of outside the box, you grew up in Baltimore, started playing very early on in your life. Talk to me about your beginnings in music and how you evolved to a point of going to Berklee and getting into your career.
Well, my dad would be the one I would have to say who really introduced me to music. And growing up, there was music in the household, all around. My father would play the piano and my mother would sing. My mother sang in the church choir. Even to this day, she still sings in the church choir. And my father, he doesn't play as much now, but yet still he plays. So, as I've been told, what happened is, was somewhere around the age of 2 or 3, I climbed up on the piano and started trying to do what my father did. Now, mind you, my father wasn't playing Duke Ellington or Thelonious Monk, but he was just playing, a lot of the repertoire out of the church, the gospel repertoire. I just started trying just to do what he did, and just around. So I remember he bought these 2 piano books. The first book was called there was 2 books, the Layla Fletcher Piano Course. It was a green book and it was an orange book. And the first piece I learned to play was called CDE. And then the second piece I learned was called CDA. So I was getting exposed to the notes on the grand staff, the treble clef, and the bass clef. Let's say at the age of 5, my dad took me to see Ada Jenkins, and that's when I started getting official piano instruction. At the age of 7, I started to study with Linda Lessie, who was affiliated with the Peabody Preparatory Institute. And she suggested that I continue study at the Peabody. So at the age of 9, I was an official preparatory student going through the preparatory program, studying theory, studying musicianship. That was a different type of music theory analysis and composition. The musicianship course was very instrumental in that it really helped develop the creative side of me. We would study in class like Gregorian chants and various pieces in the Baroque, and as we analyzed them, our task was to basically create something based on what we heard. So, once again, I've always, in addition to playing Beethoven, Brahms, and Bach, I was always in the position of having to compose. So, what better segue to the jazz idiom, I would say. 9 was a very significant time in my life because it was at 9 years old I went to a 5 and dime store, F&W Woolworths. That was today's equivalent of, today the equivalent would be the dollar store. I guess inflation, huh? In the $1.99 bin, they had albums. And I came across this record with this guy sitting at the piano, and the cover just really captured me. There was something about it I didn't know what it was, but it just captured me. And I didn't really know who the person was at the time. I had a hard time pronouncing the name. It was Thelonious Monk. And so I asked my mom to help me buy the record. I bought the record, and at the age of 9, I started listening to Ruby, My Dear, Cut the Skill with Nellie, Straight No Chaser, and all of the Monk repertoire. And I remember just loving it so much that I also started, at that time, all of the popular stations weren't necessarily FM, they were AM. And so what I would start searching for more of this music, like what I was hearing Monk play. I was searching for jazz. And I would not only search the AM city stations, I would also search the FM stations. So, I found a station that was WBJC, and I remember Robert Ford. Robert Ford used to have that show, and I would always listen to the music, and I just kept listening. I guess it was destiny because, studying the classical repertoire, I wasn't given the opportunity to go in and really listen to repertoire, but, once again, I wasn't given direction there, but when it came to jazz, it was just right there in front of me. So, in time, I would sight read Haydn and Beethoven, but I'd really be studying Bud Powell and Monk. So needless to say, when I graduated from high school, I could have easily went into the conservatory, the Peabody Conservatory, but By that time, there was a place in Boston called Berklee College of Music. And seemed to have everything there that I wanted to study. So there I went. And the rest of it is pretty much, the rest of it, I guess you call it history. I got a degree in jazz composition and arranging, but as soon as I graduated from school, I knew specifically that, the journey in jazz was for me. And so I needed to get to New York. And I didn't get to New York right away. I ended up working with John Hendricks, and I worked with Terence Blanchard and Donald Harrison. But I officially got to, between 86 and say 91, I was doing a lot of work with different people. And I did, and I guess around 87, 88, I got to New York. But it was 1991 when I got the call from Betty Carter that really started everything and really put things in motion. And so, once again, working with Betty Carter, and then, after the graduate school, for me, that was graduate school. We had an opportunity, just like the people who went through Art Blakey School, to really hone their craft. I had the chance to really hone their craft and really experience getting out and playing music. She always told me, she says, when you finish with me, you're not going to play with anybody else. You're going to start your own thing. And I guess she knew, because that's what happened.
So what I want to ask you is this. I want to get right back into it and ask you, once you started your career off, you really hit the ground running and started playing with a lot of big people as your career expanded. You have Freddie Hubbard, Benny Golson, Curtis Fuller, Regina Carter, Jimmy Heath. There were so many people. What did you learn from the masters that really helped you develop and grow as a musician to come into your own voice?
Every situation, you learn something from, but I think the person, honestly, that I learned the most with, and as far as coming to my own voice, would be Betty Carter. And the reason why I would say it is that he was always big on individuality. I have to tell you a story regarding that. It was one thing that was very pivotal, because I remember it was a certain period of time I was enjoying listening to Ahmad Jamal, and and even to this day, anytime he's anywhere near, I try to make sure I'm around. But he has this type of thing where he just simply is very unpredictable. And Betty is also unpredictable. Anyway, there was one day I was with her in Emeryville, California, at Kimball's East, and the trio started to play, and I decided I wanted to play the Miles Davis version of If I Were a Bell, and I played it right down to the letter, and I thought I was doing something very significant, basically playing this version. And when she came out, she gave me this look, and the look was so intense that if looks could kill, I wouldn't be talking with you right now. and so after he finished the set, he asked me to come back to the dressing room, and I can't really tell you exactly what she said, but in a nutshell, he basically said this: I don't have you here to play something I already know. He said, I know it better than you, because he said, I was there. And so he said, with all due respect, I know you're trying to learn all of this stuff, but you can't just, if you're going to play it, find a different way how to play it. Just don't regurgitate the same thing. And so, therefore, from that conversation, I was forever changed. And now, even to this day, if I find myself not, if I find that this mechanism go off, if I'm playing and if I'm feeling like I'm playing the same thing over and over again, I feel, there's the voice of Betty, yelling at me. It's like, now, come on, you got to push this up. And so, that's just it. He says, I have you here to think. He says, I have you here to think. I don't have you here just to play something I heard before. So something like that is easy to say that, to really play jazz is definitely a thinking person's thing, you know? You just don't play the same thing over and over, you know? Even to this day, it's just trying to find something different, not just play the same thing. I mean, you know, it's so easy out here to be typecast as, oh, you're the soulful guy, and I appreciate that, you know? I appreciate the consistency, but, you know, we grow, you know? We grow. A baby doesn't stay, you know, 6 months old. You know, it grew up. You know, after a while, if it's a guy, you know, he grows up taller, and I mean, things happen. You don't stay the same. So we evolve. So I'm just saying that, you know, as I evolve, the music is going to, for sure, the music is going to evolve. If one's going to take the journey with me, let's take the journey. Let's see what happens.
Without a doubt. Speaking of journey, you had the chance to be in Robert Altman's Kansas City, and you were a Count Basie-inspired pianist. What did you learn about Kansas City during that process, and what did you learn about growing as a musician during that experience?
Well, you know, after that experience, I have incredible respect for cinematography, because that's no joke. Some of the things that they do, it's just amazing, you know. The music was alive during that time, and I mean, it was a part of everyday life, I guess you could really call. At that time, jazz was kind of like you know, was the heartbeat, I would say. Also, like I also learned a lot about the creative process too, just how meticulous Mr. Altman was, just making sure that everything was right, never being, you know, never just accepting just whatever, you know. I had the best seat in the house. And the reason why I had the best seat in the house is because all week while we was recording, I was sitting next to Ron Carter.
Wow.
And I don't care anybody, but I had the best seat in the house, you know. I have a great respect for cinematography after that experience, you know.
The one thing, too, about your career, and we've kind of talked about this, about the legends and the luminaries you've been around. You've been all over the world. You've been on, you know, many recordings. And my question is this: how has all of this helped you as a professor, and what you give to the next generation of jazz cats?
In the university, a lot of the universities, they require one to have a master's degree. And I understand, you know, I think what sets me apart is I'm becoming one of those people. My master's degree has been, you know, hanging out with people like Betty Carter, hanging out with Elvin Jones. Last night I'm working at the Blue Note, and McCoy Tyner comes to the show. And, you know, we sit down and talk, and I just reminisce about the times I just sat down with McCoy Tyner, you know. I've actually I actually have done I appeared in Chicago on a double bill with McCoy, you know. And so, I mean, the wealth of experience I have as far as on the go training, you know, honestly, can need jump any type of classroom experience, you know. I mean, I can go and go through the process of getting the master's and the doctorate degree, but some of this experience that I have, you know, being out here on the street and being able to work with different people, you know, through all of the years, you know, it's funny. It's now, as I, you know, hear all the cats telling stories that they were telling stories to me, now I'm telling the stories to the next generation, you know. It's just, once again, I have experience that someone who just goes to the university and simply graduates and then goes back and gets a master's, they will never have what I have. And I think, like, even in this time, we lost our brother and comrade Roy Hargrove, but once again, you know, all of the people that he has been around and all, and, you know, I've actually had the chance to walk. I've walked with him, actually worked and recorded in his band. So to be able to pass that experience on, you know, you can learn in university. You can learn about a sharp 9 chord And you can learn about drop 2 and drop 3 voices and everything until you get a practical meaning of the flat third and the flat seventh. All you're going, if you don't have people in your corner to share that with you, you'll sound like a great jazz textbook. But once again, you need to have people out here learning how to basically tell their stories.
Your career, as you've talked about, with so many folks you've played with, so many miles that you've traveled and albums and experiences, are you happy with where you're at in your career?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I realize that there's more to do, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I don't have any regrets, but I just do look forward to moving forward. I got to keep it moving. Jimmy Heath is 92 years old, and he just finished just yet another big band recording. And so he's still out here writing. And they said, did he do old material? No, he did new material. So you're out here when you can't, when you're done, when I'm finished, and when I can't do anymore, then I'm taking the journey over across the water to see Monk for real. To shake Bud Powell's hand, check out Fats, Fats Wallace, and all the cats. But until that day, I'm not trying to hurry it up, but until that day, I've got work here to do. And so, I have to do everything I can to be the best musician I can be. I'm doing everything I can to send people away feeling better than when they arrive. That's my job, That's what I'm put on this earth to do. To put notes out in the atmosphere to give people, to inspire people for better. Someone's feeling down, let the music be the drug to lift them up, rather than some type of chemical thing, you know what I mean?
Without a doubt. And, it's interesting, being a part of Kansas City, I remember when that was filmed here, and I've been down off 18 and Vine quite a bit, and I've always had this notion, if I could get that Jazz DeLorean to pull up, Doc opens the hatch and says, get in, punch the digits, and go where you want to go. My question to you is this. If you could go anywhere in time, any place, who would you want to see live?
Oh, my gosh. To be honest with you, I would like to go back to the days of the Baroque. I would like to see those cats. Then I would flip forward. And then I would like to be in the period. I would like to check out the musicians and those who composed the Negro spirituals. I like to talk to them. I like and find out some things. And then I would keep going. I would love to hang out with birds. I would love just to be a fly on the wall and just see birds and go see, and I'd see the bebop cats, I would love to see Bud, the earlier days of Bud Funk. But I think that's what I do. But if you ask me honestly, if I could really go back in time, I would go back in time, and I would like to hear what the cats in the Baroque did, because when you think about it, you have the figured bass, and then historically, just to see how these cats compose these things. I mean, some of it, I know that was written down, but I know that improvisation just didn't start in the jazz age. It's been around for a long time, and I would love just to go back and see how people put things together.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I like that answer quite a bit. Let me ask you this. You've dedicated your life to it. You clearly love it. So my question to you is this. Why do you love jazz?
I love jazz because it gives me the freedom to be me. It allows me to express who I am, who I strive to be. Gives me the opportunity to be able to share what I feel and share what I hear. I have deep respect for the repertoire, but I don't like to be bound by it. If you're going to put me in the box, I want to be in the box with one window, with at least with the top part open, so I can always see out. And so when I get tired of it, I can go ahead and jump out the box and keep moving forward. I like jazz because it allows me to move forward. It allows me to move forward.
Beautiful. So this is my final question for you, and it all comes to this, and I want to know this. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you know who you are. Tell me, who do you think you are?
Well, I'm working on that, man. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Who am I? I'm a person who loves music. I'm a person who loves fishing, you know. But when you just, I'd like to just think of myself of a servant for humankind, doing what I can to make the world a better place, doing everything I can. Who am I? I'm a person who strives to change the world, one rhythm, one melody, one harmony at a time.
Beautiful. And I believe you've done that. Absolutely. Cyrus, thank you for taking some time out from Neon Jazz. Continued success, and hopefully we'll see you swing back through Kansas City at some point.
I look forward to it. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Baltimore, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Cyrus for his time, his music, and his cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.